Welcome to Conversations the World Over. I'm Raymond Arroyo. Tonight's guest is a former director of Planned Parenthood. She worked at the clinic in College Station, Texas. She spoke to me a few years ago about her experience with the abortion provider and gave me an insider's perspective on Planned Parenthood's methods and motivation. She's author of the book Unplanned, the dramatic true story of a former Planned Parenthood leader's eye-opening journey across the lifeline. Here's my conversation with Abbey Johnson. Now, you were a Planned Parenthood director at this clinic in Texas for 8 years. Tell me what precipitated your change of heart. It was a moment when you were asked to actually assist at an abortion, which hadn't happened before?
Well, I had actually been in the abortion room before, but this was the first time that we had actually done a live abortion procedure on an ultrasound screen. And it's called an ultrasound-guided abortion procedure. It had never been done at our clinic, to my knowledge. And so it was, you know, the first time it was going to happen, I was going to be participating kind of as a learning experience. And I didn't know what was going to take place. I didn't know what I was going to see. But, you know, I walked in the door thinking, well, you know, there's going to be something to be learned here. And if I'm going to move up in the corporation like I hope to, this will be a good tool for me to have.
And what happened? You were asked to hold the ultrasound wand, right?
Yes. Yes.
And what did you see?
I saw a 13-week-old child in the womb. And when the abortion started to take place, I saw that child begin to fight for its life during the abortion procedure. And I saw it try to move to the other side of its mother's uterus, but there was nowhere for it to go. And I eventually saw that child lose the battle to abortion.
How long after that did you leave the Planned Parenthood clinic?
It was just about a week.
Really? Now, I want to show people, this is a clip of Congressman Chris Smith, no stranger to this program. He was reading a bit of your book during this debate. He read it into the congressional record. Take a look.
With my eyes glued to the image of this perfectly formed baby, I watched as a new image emerged on the video screen. The cannula, a straw-shaped instrument attached to the end of the suction tube, had been inserted into the uterus and was nearing the baby's side. It looked like an invader on the screen. Out of place, wrong. It just looked wrong.
Now, Abbey, a lot of people throughout this debate, they say Planned Parenthood themselves say they want to make abortion safe, legal, and rare. You, as a director of the clinic, say what? Well,
right now, it's just legal. Abortion is not rare, and Planned Parenthood has no intention of making abortion rare. We see that Planned Parenthood just recently put out a mandate that stated that every single Planned Parenthood affiliate must be an abortion-providing affiliate by 2013.
And this is something new, but not totally unexpected. When you were at the clinic, tell me how they create their budget. I found this fascinating in your book, the way the budget is actually created in these local clinics.
Well, you have two budgets. One is for family planning, and then one is for abortion. And they give you a certain number of clients that you have to see every month. And there's a dollar amount attached to those clients. And you just multiply your client by the amount of money you need to make off of that client, and that's your budget.
And so abortion is a big part of their budget.
Absolutely.
And you all had to get a certain quota in every month? Is
That's
that
right.
the idea?
You have to perform a certain number of abortions every month.
But they aren't done throughout the week. The surgical abortions are only done on the weekends. But you all were giving out a lot of RU486 during the week, yes?
Yes, and that is the main way that Planned Parenthood wants to increase their abortion numbers, is through a telemedicine-ish way of dispensing RU486.
And how do you drive the numbers up? How do you meet that quota each month?
Well, you know, quite frankly, you have to start bringing down barriers. So, one, you want to reduce the financial barrier. They're able to do that. Next, you want to reduce the barrier to accessibility. So you want to start offering abortions, every day of the week or as many times as you can during the week. You want to be able, when a woman finds out she's pregnant, get her in as soon as you can. Get her in the next day so that she doesn't have time to think about her decision. She can just immediately make an appointment and have an abortion.
What would you say to women who are contemplating an abortion? I know there are some in the audience from time to time. You yourself in the book write about your own and it's a torturous experience of going through the abortion procedure. What would you say to girls who are contemplating it right now and find themselves in a difficult position?
I go out and sidewalk counsel outside of the clinic where I used to work and other clinics as I travel. And, one of the things that I tell women is that you'll never regret being a mother. I have a 4-year-old daughter. I never regret having my daughter, Grace. But I do regret the 2 abortions that I had. And, you don't ever regret motherhood, but you do regret lost motherhood.
You also have a great line in the book that I pulled out. Never trust a decision you don't want your mom to know about. Yeah. Which is a really good rule of thumb. Because this is not a decision I think these young women take lightly, no. But I do think they feel there's no other option to them. And the fact is there are other options. What are those other options? What's the story we're not hearing? And we're going to return to Planned Parenthood in a moment, but talk to me about these crisis pregnancy centers, what they're doing now.
Crisis pregnancy centers are really offering a wonderful array of services that Planned Parenthood is not offering, and they're doing it all at no cost to the woman. They are not, by any stretch of the imagination, free. There is a cost for all of the services, but there are dedicated people who are pro-life people that are paying the cost of these services, and they are providing material goods for women. They are providing emotional support for these women. They're providing pregnancy tests. Many of them are providing free sonograms. They're providing, so many services for these women that Planned Parenthood are not providing for them. In
this whole debate this past week over this Planned Parenthood federal funding, $350 million come from the federal and local governments. They make a profit of $1.2 billion. Where is the money coming from?
It's primarily coming from their abortion services.
Really? Yes. How much is an abortion in one of these clinics?
It can range anywhere from, $400 to, a couple $1,000s, depending on how far along she is in her pregnancy.
Now, Abby, you've seen, no doubt, all of the ink being spilled during this debate. And those who are defending Planned Parenthood say, wait a minute, this is a war on women and children. There are services being provided. Sure. At that family planning clinic that Planned Parenthood is running. And here's the statistics they throw out. 17% of the services there, cancer screening. 34% of the services provided there, contraception. Only 3% of the services, Abbey Johnson, is abortion-related. How can you close down that health clinic in this distressed area of a city?
Do you want me to answer?
Oh, yeah.
Well, there's a couple things I want to say there. One is that Planned Parenthood skews their numbers. So the 97% number, it's not accurate.
97% referring to what?
Preventative. Their preventative care. That's not a real number. Planned Parenthood does a really good job of bundling and unbundling services. So if a woman comes in for an annual exam, for instance, and she gets a pap smear, she gets several STD screenings, she gets 13 months of birth control, that could add up to 20 services, and they're going to charge that as 20 visits. They're going to unbundle that as 20 visits. Now, if she comes in for an abortion, they're going to bundle those services so that it's 1 visit. So it's actually a very, very skewed number. So 20 visits for 1 patient as opposed to 1 visit for abortion. So the numbers are probably more like 20% of the services they provide are abortion services if you bundled them both on family planning and abortion.
What do you say to those who say you are depriving women of pap smears and mammograms that they couldn't get anywhere else, Abby?
Okay, first of all,
that's what that federal fund, taking away that federal funding, that's what it will lead to.
First of all, Planned Parenthood provides absolutely no mammograms. No Planned Parenthood across the country provides mammogram services. So Cecile Richards and all the other, advocates of Planned Parenthood keep saying that. No Planned Parenthood provides mammograms, number one. Number two, we are not saying that we don't want women to have these services. I'm not even saying I want the $363 million back. I don't want it back. Take the money and put it into other healthcare providers.
And there are community clinics that are there in place that we don't hear anything about.
Absolutely. There are about 800 Planned Parenthood centers. There are almost 7,000 federally qualified health centers that do not perform abortions, but they provide comprehensive healthcare services, not a limited amount of services like Planned Parenthood, but a comprehensive healthcare services. They see women, they see men, and they do pediatric care. They have vision centers, they have pharmaceutical centers, they have dental centers. These are comprehensive care centers, and they can also do mammograms. So they're actually providing the services that Planned Parenthood cannot.
An acquaintance of mine, when she heard you were coming on the show, sent me an email in the past week and said, "Why are you having this woman on? She's a liar. You shouldn't have her on." And she said, what about the argument that contraceptives and distributing contraceptives actually reduce the number of abortions? Now, this particular person is, you know, I think more liberal on the political spectrum. I have heard the same argument put forward by conservative friends of mine. What is the answer here? Do contraceptives actually reduce the number of abortions, given what you've seen on the ground in Planned Parenthood clinics?
Well, we see that it actually doesn't. We see the studies show that contraceptives don't do what they promise to do. So Guttmacher Institute, in fact, which is Planned Parenthood's own research arm, show that 54% of women who are having abortions were using contraception at the time they got pregnant. So another way to look at that is that, you know, you're looking out into the waiting room of an abortion center. More than half of those girls are on some kind of contraception and they're pregnant. So, you know, that's a good way to kind of look at it. We see that in you know, places where there's higher contraceptive rates, there's higher abortion rates. That's no coincidence there. There's a high correlation.
And what about, you talk in the book about building a relationship. They sort of build a relationship to these young women using the free contraceptives, come in and get an exam for an STD. What is the method behind that approach?
Well, you know, it's the same thing with their sex education programs. You know, let's get into the schools. Let's get these young
you go to
boys
the website,
and girls.
There are cartoons. It's kind of fun and frolic there.
Absolutely. You know, let's get them in early. Let's develop a relationship with them. We're sure their method's going to fail eventually. 54%. Hello. We're sure it's going to fail eventually. We're going to get them in, and then we're going to have them as a cash patient, and they're going to be an abortion patient.
Can they survive? Can Planned Parenthood nationally survive without that federal injection of $370 million?
No.
No. So what do you think will happen?
I think that centers will start closing. Some centers will be able to maintain, especially the large surgical centers, but a lot of the smaller centers will close.
Abbey, I want to switch gears for a moment. You are now affiliated with Live Action, correct?
Yes.
Which is Lila Rose's group. Lila Rose did the Undercover exposés we've been seeing so much of in the media, where she sent cameras in and an actor posing as a pimp, another as a prostitute, and they basically revealed, it's alleged, that Planned Parenthood was willing to aid and abet sex trafficking of underage girls via their clinics. How prevalent is this? How widespread is this? Or is it at all?
It's widespread. It's prevalent. You know, we had women that would come into our clinic. They were prostitutes. They were, you know, in the sex industry. We let them go back out with their pimps. We did nothing to stop them. We
didn't report it?
No, we did not report it. We did nothing to help them. You know, and I think what has happened in Planned Parenthood is that, you know, I remember in the Virginia tape, there was this one young girl, a worker, and she said, you know, oh, we accept everyone, you know, we don't judge, we accept everyone here, you know, all different walks of life. And that really stuck out to me because I could almost hear myself saying that when I worked at Planned Parenthood. You know, what Planned Parenthood has done is that they have allow themselves to be a place where they want to be so tolerant of people and so tolerant of these different walks of life that they have forgotten to protect the same women that they say that they are there to help.
Yeah. So you would say that what we saw on those tapes from Live Action, that's standard operating procedure, you think, for Planned Parenthood?
Yes, and I don't even think that they realize that they're hurting. the women that are coming in.
Well, I mean, in stunning testimony this week, Phil Klein, who was the former Attorney General in Kansas, is being brought up on ethics charges because of the way he handled records that he got from Planned Parenthood. As it turns out, he took the stand this week and said he personally observed or discovered 166 instances where either a Planned Parenthood clinic or George Tiller, the late-term abortionist, allowed 14-year-old girls or younger to come into these clinics, receive abortions. Only 2 of the 166 were reported as child rape cases. Is this more of the same? That's only Kansas. Did you see this sort of thing in Texas?
Yes. Yes. Not personally at my clinic. We did a pretty good job of reporting, particularly minors who are coming in for an abortion. But yes, it does happen. It happened at our affiliate. I remember when the state was coming in, there'd be times where the state was coming in for an audit, and all of a sudden we're having to pull all of our minor charts, and certain clinics have a problem with their minor charts, and we're going to have to scrub them. We're going to have to fix them before the state comes, and that is a very common occurrence.
Tell me, what are abortion people who are working in the abortion industry? What has been their reaction to this book, which is a very personal tale on one front? And the sort of back shadow of the book is an expose of Planned Parenthood, what really goes on in its motivations.
Well, I've had, several different reactions. I've had some people that are in the industry that have contacted me. And, they've said, I read your book. I have mixed emotions. I work in the industry. I'd like to talk to you more. And those, I want to talk to them. I've had people that, have left the industry and they want to talk to me. I've had people that are still in the industry that, they don't have very favorable things to say about me. But I'm just glad that people are reading it.
I was also struck that the Coalition for Life people, which is a group that does sidewalk counseling, they pray outside the clinic. You mentioned in the book that you looked out your window and they were out there praying for you. And do you go out and talk to them? Was that how important was that in your journey?
It was important because I just always remembered them saying, we will help you. If you ever want to leave, we're here for you. And just kind of thinking, I hope they mean it because here I come. And I didn't actually go to them, but their building is conveniently located next door to the Planned Parenthood. So I actually got in my car. I could have walked, but that would have looked suspicious. So I got in my car and drove over, drove around the block and went over there.
Now, if you watch MSNBC, and not too many people do, Rachel Maddow the other night made it seem as if the pro-life activists are these terrorists, domestic terrorists, in fact, is how she referred to them. Is that what you saw when you were on the other side of the fence here?
There were times I felt like that. When Dr. Tiller was killed, I felt that way. Right. When clinics would get bombed, I felt that way. There were times where I felt like, we are in a battle and these people are terrorists out to kill us.
But these are isolated acts by and large. I mean, they are no doubt should be condemned and outrageous acts and unjustifiable acts.
Yes.
But they're isolated.
They are isolated, but that is not the way that the Planned Parenthood world and the abortion world. That is not what they want the clinic workers to feel. They want you to feel like this is everybody, every pro-lifer. This is what is taking place. They're all making bombs in their basements. They're all, this could happen to our clinic at any point in time. And so, you have to be on your guard. They're following you everywhere. This is, this is taking place.
Yeah, I have an email here from a woman who says, isn't it curious that pro-lifers are seen as terrorists while those who are killing innocent children are seen as generous souls?
Right. Yeah, and I remember the week that I was, thinking, okay, I think I need to get out of here. Before I'd always seen us as the savior. So, I'd always seen these people out on the fence. They were the ones that were harassing. They were the ones that were bothering our clients, and we were saving them. Getting them into our clinic and providing these great services. And I remember that week I started to see a change, and I started to feel like we were the bad guys. And they were kind of saving them. And I was finding myself relieved if the people were actually going to the fence and taking the information and leaving. And I thought, this is not how I should feel if I'm the director of a clinic. You know,
probably not a good thing.
No.
Tell me, we're getting emails, a lot of them, suggesting that the Susan J. Komen Foundation, the G. Komen Foundation, which is there for the defense.
Pink ribbon.
You know, pink ribbons fighting breast cancer. It says here they give money to Planned Parenthood for the sole purpose of mammograms. Is this true? This is Katie from Juniper, Florida. You said a moment ago they don't do any mammograms.
They don't do any mammograms.
So why is the Komen Foundation giving them money?
Susan G. Komen is a very heavy donor to Planned Parenthood. Susan G. Komen put out a statement saying that they give to Planned Parenthood so that women in rural areas will have mammograms. But that is not true because Planned Parenthood does not provide any mammogram services. Planned Parenthood is a level 1 breast clinic, and they can only provide manual breast exams. And that can be done at any hospital, clinic, anywhere by any nurse.
Wow. So do they realize, and talk a little about this, I've had many a physician try to educate me on the link between contraceptives and breast cancer. Did you see anything in your experience to see any linkage there?
You know, I don't know. I'm not a doctor. I'm not a professional. But, you know, as I've come out of this, I mean, I definitely have side effects in my own life from all the different types of contraception that I've used in my past. And I see just, you know, these side effects from all of these women that have taken contraception. And I look at the fine print now on the bottom of contraceptive labels that I never looked at before, and I think there's got to be a link. You know, we look at cancer, you know, reproductive cancers are on the rise, and, you know, contraception's on the rise, and that correlation cannot be a coincidence.
Well, and you see, I mean, we know elevated estrogen levels lead to the metastasization of this cancer.
It just makes sense.
So if you're giving them estrogen to cut off the reproduction, it would seem there's some byproduct there. This is another question, and this is something you touch on in the book. Why is it that Planned Parenthood would deliberately deny the medical fact that the unborn child is a living person? And do they, Bradley?
You know, they have had to change their talking points a little bit because women are coming in and they're saying, you know, I know this is a baby. I know this is my baby. And so Planned Parenthood, about 2 years ago, they restructured and they kind of went through this rebranding. And so they started to say, you know, that abortion is a wise parenting decision.
Right.
And so, you know, you're choosing abortion because you care about yourself, you care about your family, and you care about your future family. And so they had to start recognizing that these women do see this as a baby. They do see it as a living human being. And they had to restructure that because so many women were coming in and they are recognizing it as their child.
Well, you mentioned in the book, and if memory serves, that you would tell people the tissue, as the fetal tissue is removed, it doesn't experience any pain.
Right.
So there is sort of that disconnect that one has to have. If
and there has to be a disconnect. You know, there has to be a disconnect.
You need the emotional distance to keep going. And the book does a great job of illustrating, as you became more sensitive to the reality of this, your inability to really stay there. Stay even in the clinic any longer.
Right.
Here's another email I want to share with you. Didn't you feel that there was a spiritual battle going on, especially when you saw what an abortion was doing to a baby? That's Brenda from Texas.
I didn't feel it immediately, no. I see it now. I look back at my life and I see such a difference. I see how my mind was caught up truly in evil. The things that came out of my mouth, the things that I thought of, the way I was living. I remember the first pro-life book I ever read was Dr. Nathanson's Hand of God. And I remember in the book, he was talking about how the Nazi soldiers would they would go to the concentration camps and they would torture these Jews, and then they would go home to their families. And, you know, they would eat dinner and they would, you know, snuggle at bed, you know, bedtime with their sons and their daughters, and they would just have this disconnect. And he was comparing it to those of us that had worked in the abortion industry. And I remember that being a very profound statement for me. And looking back, I can see how that was so true. I can see the parallels there. And I see how my mind and my spirit and my body was so caught up in evil, but I didn't see it then.
This is interesting. This Nancy in Ontario raises this point. Can you explain the math to her? She says, why can't Planned Parenthood survive without the government subsidy if the profit is $1 billion and they're only getting $370 million?
I know that doesn't really make sense, but if they lose the $363 million, that's losing $363 million of Medicaid patients, of title patients. That's losing a lot of money. That's losing a lot of foot traffic in the door. And those are people that they are relying on to come back in for abortion services. And so that's a lot of their patients. It's a lot of their clientele. Remember I said that 54% of women who are contracepting, that method will fail them and they will come back in for an abortion. They are relying on those methods to fail them so they can come back in.
And some of the congressmen this week have been making the point that these are fungible dollars.
Absolutely.
Because they're used to pay for the facility or the electricity of the facility or people in the facility. And the fact is they're only, they're doing medical abortions over here in this wing, and it's not explicitly going to that, but it's keeping the whole enterprise afloat.
Absolutely. If one, in fact, in my own facility, in my own affiliate where I worked, our family planning number would be in the red, but our surgical number was always in the black. So, one would compensate for the other, and that's the way it is. So people that say, oh, the money's not fungible, it absolutely is.
It says here, this is Dave from Fort Wayne, Indiana. How does this funding help Planned Parenthood stay in business but stay segregated from abortion services? But there's no segregation.
There's no segregation. On paper, there's a segregation. For the state, there's a segregation. For the federal government, there may be a segregation. On the door, there may be two different names. But in the end, at the end of the day, in their bank account, it's one big pile of money.
I can see why they tried to sue you and shut you up.
Yeah.
Let's talk about your journey to the Catholic Church. Now, I hear you're entering the church in this Easter.
Yes.
Tell me, how did that come about? This is a long journey for you.
Yeah, it's been an exciting journey. We were actually Episcopalian,
right?
And we were kind of booted out of the church.
Booted out?
Yeah, we were.
You mean when you left the Planned Parenthood clinic?
Yeah.
So that gets you booted out?
Yeah.
Oh wow. Okay.
Yeah. Well, the Episcopalian Church, very pro-choice, part of the Religious Coalition for Reproductive Choice. So they're very pro-choice, believe in abortion rights. So it was not. It was surprising because that was our faith community. We loved them. It was very sad for us. But on one hand, we joined that church because they were open to abortion, right? And that's where we felt comfortable. So, we were asked to leave, so we did. And then, we started looking around at churches, and of course, a lot of our new friends were Catholic. And we were looking around, and finally went to Mass. And immediately we sat down and we thought, man, the liturgy is almost the exact same.
The lights came on again.
Yeah, and we just knew that that was the right place for us to be.
Let me know what you thought of tonight's show and which of our interviews you'd like to see in an upcoming edition of Conversations the World Over. You can always write me at raymond@raymondarroyo.com. The new show premieres each Wednesday at 5:30 p.m. Eastern Time in the U.S. For those of you outside the U.S., you can go to EWTN.com for airtimes in your area. And you can always catch us online. Sign up for my free e-blast at raymondarroyo.com, and I'll send you a link to the show. Cardinal Avery Dulles and Archbishop Philip Hannon reflect on the legacy of Vatican II next week. On behalf of the staff and crew of EWTN News, I'm Raymond Arroyo. The conversations continue. Don't miss them. Bye now.